are listening to the Bag of Games Game Out Loud podcast for Tuesday, April 2nd, 2013. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Bag of Games Game Out Loud podcast. I am your host this weekend, Colin Cooper, and it is Bioshock week. We are very excited, so we are here. But we're not going to talk about that yet. Yeah, I don't know if that's a Bioshock song or not. Was that a reference to something, Rob?
CAGE.
Wow. Oh, my God. I'm so dense. And we'll get to that in our spoiler section later, probably. Anyway, I'm here today with the OG crew. We, of course, have Jordan Junkbox Jones Rusnak.
Well, I was rating trash cans, and by the way, I think you got it wrong, dude. This is not 2013. It is 1912. Thank you, or maybe 1946.
It is
or maybe 1950. I think it's 2014.
All times and all things, Jordan. There is no time. The more important question is when. And we also, of course, have Rob, the Rancor Slayer, Peterson.
Yes, I'm just phoning in from 1912 here. It's up in Columbia.
You sound like you're on an old ham radio.
Yes, that's about right. I'm using a voxophone.
Yay, voxophones. We should hit J to record or to listen to Rob's recordings.
We should hit J, or if you're playing on console, which is the wrong way, probably A or something.
I think it's
leave this
triangle.
lying in a random room around the town.
Right.
It would be a shame if someone found it.
Yeah, these personal messages.
All right. Anyway, we'll get to the voxophones. We'll get to the old can radio as soon as we get to our topic and our spoiler section this week for Bioshock Infinite, because that is the week.
But it's not going to be all spoilers, though. Only after the fun stuff. We'll let you know when spoilers are coming.
Oh, no. We're going to do two sections today. We're doing our topic about the game, and then we're doing the spoiler section afterwards. So stick around after the podcast.
If you've beaten Bioshock Infinite. Or if you just don't care about a great story.
Okay. I mean, you should really not listen to the spoiler section. Anyway, we are getting way off topic. Let's get on to what we've been playing in video games this week. So I'm going to start with you, Jordan. What have you been playing?
I don't know.
Moving on to Rob.
I put a few games in. I mean, I put a lot of hard hours into Bioshock Infinite, but Steam tells me that I played a game called Bish, maybe Gish. I think it's called Gish. I don't know if any of you guys are getting the reference to Rob like 3 episodes in.
No one but me and you got that.
Yeah, well, I did.
Not even me. And I'm on the podcast. So.
I don't remember the game that Rob was referencing. Well, it was Gish, but I don't remember the game he was referencing it to. But I just saw it on sale on Steam.
Mutant Blob's Attack is what I just heard that they were similar. I've never actually played Gish.
Oh, well, Gish is a lot of fun. You are a tarball who was trying to save his girlfriend who was taken down into the sewers.
Go on.
I'm intrigued. Well, Gish is a ball of tar, like I said, and he has several states. So he has like his normal state where he can just roll around and move. He can jump by like squishing his body down and then pushing up. So he has a gradually heightening jump. He can only jump when he's compressed. So you just start low, higher. Then he can also harden himself, and it becomes dense, so he can fall through water and crush enemies. And then he also has this sort of like clingy mode where his girlfriend shows up and he's like, "Why don't you just leave me alone? I need my space." Or sorry, wrong clingy mode. He clingy, get it? No, little cilia come out of him, and he can then climb on walls and ceilings. And it's basically just trying to get from one end of the level to the other and figure out the way to get through it. And it's a lot of fun. Oh yeah, he can also become like gooey, so he can fall down small crevices.
Wait, I'm confused. This is a platformer, or
Yes.
This is
a side-scrolling platformer?
Yeah, it does sound fairly similar to Mutant Blob's Attack.
No, I've never played Mutant Blob's Attack, but I hear it's a lot like Gish.
That's to me right when you first started talking about it, I was like, "Are you launching the PS4 with this game?" Because it's reminiscent of what we saw with Knack. I felt like a kind of indiscriminate ball of something that can grow or change forms. I don't know. Like it seems like those kind of games to me are always either like launches or kind of throwaway platformers. As I feel like I've played those, always feel like games I've played to me before. This game or Knack or whatever, you know.
Well, they do have a knack for making Gish games. I mean, I don't know.
Wow. We are feeling
Boo.
clever this Saturday, everyone.
Boo.
Podcast.
But as we'll get away from this just because, I mean, I don't want to gish this up. Incredipede.
That wasn't even a pun.
Yeah,
No,
I know.
it's just- I could use that with anything. I don't want to
Gishing on to a different Gishik.
Hey, go gish yourself, you gish. I played Incredipede. I don't know if you guys have heard of Incredipede.
No. Please tell us.
Oh yes, well, I will, whether you want me to or not. It's you play as an eye, and this eye has different stalks that come off it that have exposed bone, which sounds really painful. I assume this.
Off an eye. I've got to say I'm confused right there because I'm not really familiar with stalks, as you put it, coming off an eye.
Mm-hmm. They're like arms that come off, and this little thing, I think at its root is just an eye, and then you put legs and tendons and muscles on it, or legs and muscles on it, to make it move in a specific way to get it to eat the wonderful fruit that it likes and then get to the sunbeam.
So it's a first-person shooter.
Yeah, no.
What kind of game is this? I'm so confused at every game you're explaining today.
Indie side-scrolling platformer.
Indie side-scrolling platformer. Okay.
Indeed. So your job in this game is you have this eye, and you need to create legs and joints at variable lengths in order to create a means of this little eye to move. So you can create like a little inchworm thing by creating several muscles and leg systems, or you can make it have actual legs by creating legs, or make it rotate and lift itself up using little stalker things. Like one of my best ones was I had really long legs, but it kept falling over, so I had other legs that I created around its body that were shorter, that were moving faster, and they created the balance for it so I could actually walk.
So is this like a cross between a platformer and like the Incredible Machine or something? I still don't understand how this works. It sounds pretty cool.
The Incredible Machine would be a much more in-depth version of this, which now I want to go find Tim, because that game is fun. But you have fruit that you need to get to, and you are literally like just this little eye. You are an eye, and you click on the eye and pull out to make a limb. That limb can then, if you click on the bone, be lengthened or shortened, and then you can also create legs off of that. Then you click on one of those legs, and then you can attach a muscle to it, either going left to right or right to left, and then it will change how it moves. So you basically create this thing to move and get the fruit.
Wait, can you just create this thing, or do you have to earn things to create different pieces of bone or muscle?
No, that'd be way too advanced. This is literally like you can just create.
So, am I kind of getting a so I don't know. I was trying to place this in my mind of what I've seen before. A Spore kind of feel to this?
You know, I've never actually played Spore. I want to.
But you're creating an organism essentially that's unique looking, and each person's eye will look different than the next person's eye, or are there set combinations?
If you're playing hard, you will be able to create your own. I tried playing easy just to get the ideas, the mechanics, and it's really just figuring out how to use A and S to move left and right. But the advanced...
Whoa, slow down.
So you use A and S to move your creature and rotate your creature in a specific manner to cause him to either walk or rotate and roll in a way to get to the fruit. In easy mode, they have already created the different shapes, and you are simply trying to learn those shapes and figure out how they move. If you then advance to the hard mode, or the advanced mode, you are creating these shapes on your own and doing what you want to try to make the creature.
So do you get kind of some emergent gameplay out of this?
I'm sure you do, because, I mean, I'm sure there are set ways to do it, like the developer was like, okay, like this is how they're going to do it. But if you can create a different creature that does it another way, then more power to you.
Well, that's what I'm asking. That sounds kind of interesting. If you could create something that could traverse the level or do things that the developer didn't expect, you know, I mean, which I would have to think would come out of something where there are multiple options, and if the creativity is allowed,
Well, I think you're thinking the world is a little more advanced than it is. I mean, you're trying to go
possibly
like off the edge of your screen to get to, and maybe over a few blocks so far, to get to the cherry. So it's not too terribly advanced. But the last thing I want to talk about here is Sonic All-Star Racings, and that was a lot of fun. I took it over to a friend's house last weekend for a party, and we ended up having people switching in and out, like racing.
What platform is this?
This is on PC.
Oh, okay.
I had a couple of Xbox controllers hooked up to my PC, and people were just cycling in and out, just choosing weird characters and racing around in these tracks. And that game really does scratch that Mario Kart Diddy Kong Racing itch, just with different characters. And one of the cool things is that the levels change. So the reason it's called it's Sonic All-Star Racing Transformed. And you can either be a car, a boat, or a plane, and the levels change according to the levels. So your laps will never be the same all the way through. They take different routes throughout the maps, and each vehicle handles differently. So it's a lot of fun, and it's a little bit harder to get used to. But once you do, it is just a blast. I think it was on sale. I think it's still $30 right now, but it is definitely a fun game if you like those Diddy Kong Racing, those kart style games.
Now you were playing this on big picture mode.
Yes, I loaded up big picture mode and let people see what all of the things I had on my computer. I've got like 71 games I think installed right now. So
that is the first time I've actually personally heard of someone using the PC and big picture mode as they would, a console for a party style gameplay.
Yeah, it works really well for that. I mean, Steam is great if you know what you're doing, but if you don't, it's a little hard. Big Picture just puts it into perspective that a lot of people can understand. It makes big icons and makes it just really simple to click and play. I mean, hell, you go and you find a game, you hit A, and then it's just immediately A again to play. It's pretty.
Yeah, I remember I Lotused you one time. I don't know if you remember that.
I did. I thought you were just having a seizure while trying to type.
No, the Lotus, which is a brilliant mechanic. It's for our viewers or listeners who don't know, the Lotus system is a chat system that sets up the I guess the A, B, X, Y or PlayStation control. Can you use a PlayStation controller with it?
You can. Well, I'm sure you can if you have the drivers for it, but I don't.
Yeah,
I
it's
just use
kind of
wired.
a pain in the ass, but it's possible.
Okay, so I mean, I used an Xbox controller, so A, B, X, Y. Like it sets it up so that is literally in a Lotus shape that allows very quick and intuitive, essentially typing with your gamepad.
It does take a little bit to get used to, but it is a really sweet setup.
Much
Check out
faster.
my sweet Lotus.
Much better than so what a bad idea of Xbox and PlayStation. I'm sure that's just like a keyboard on the screen, a keyboard made for your 10 fingers to lay across, and that's how we're going to interface this with the gamepad. Like what? You couldn't think of slightly better way to do this?
Let's see what the new systems come out with. I mean, they may have a more intuitive way of putting in inputs, or hell, maybe
Probably be a tablet.
Well, I think I don't think I hope that they just get it their skulls and they allow you to use mouse and keyboard.
Oh God, they won't.
I know.
It's funny because once we get into our topic, I'd like to tell a quick tale of a friend of mine who was struggling with the first-person shooter on the console, and I was just telling him, well, that's kind of the nature of the beast when you do that,
Indeed.
So, anyway, Jordan, anything else you want to talk about?
Played Sonic Spinball. That game's always fun. Far Cry 3, and a game called Shatter, which I'll talk about next week.
Okay, great. Well, thanks for sharing with us. And Rob, what have you been playing this week?
Well, it's obviously mostly been a Bioshock heavy week, but
right.
Gearbox released a gigantic patch for Aliens Colonial Marines a few weeks ago. So I finally decided to install that and see if it made the game any more playable.
Did it?
So was it a new game?
A completely new game. It's totally
Really?
awesome. No, I'm just joking.
I was gonna say I was totally okay. I was like totally joking. Okay. Yeah.
It is better. They made the alien AI significantly less stupid and much more aggressive. They redid a lot of the textures and stuff. The game looks a little better, runs a little better. It's less buggy, but still really, really buggy. But I'm pretty sure this game's unsalvageable.
It's funny though, like Does that mitigate the disaster for them in any way? I mean, what do you think that does for Gearbox as a company decision? Is it let's give some credence to our fans, or is it a financial decision?
I think it's a reputation decision. They got so much shit over Colonial Marines that I think they really want to show that they care about making this as right as they can. And good on them for that. And the patch came out in a timely manner. And
sure,
maybe over time, if they continue, they'll be able to turn it into something decent. But just the core of what's here is so bad, especially in terms of writing, that I don't think even if they made the gameplay pretty decent, they're not going to be able to redesign all the real core things about it that suck. So
maybe they'll just come out with the Colonial Marines 2, and it'll be Colonial Marines 1, just with a little better story.
That's tough for a company to come back from that. I mean, when a company gets such bad hype on their game, when their next game comes out, what are people going to think? Unless it has the title like Borderlands 3 or something, right? Obviously, Borderlands 3 will do fine, but if it's a new title by Gearbox, from the company that brought you Colonial Marines...
Well, that's why you won't see that. Like, no one is going to put that on a box.
So bury it. That's what I'm saying. Like, why give this DLC or this patch? Why not just bury it?
This is the last Aliens-based first-person shooter we're going to see for a very long time. I mean, it's been such a disaster that I just can't see anyone in their right mind greenlighting it, even if other company worked out a deal with Fox instead of Sega. I just don't see it happening.
Yeah. Well, did it make money, though? Because if it made any money at all, it will happen again.
I don't know. I know it sold relatively well in England, which it's weird. In the UK, Aliens games do really well for some reason.
Does James Cameron do a lot of charity work there, or? Well, that's good. I mean, anything else you've been playing this week, Rob?
Not really. Nothing to. I mean, I'm still playing through the Stalker games. They're amazing.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously we've all been kind of focused on one particular game, right?
Yeah.
Was there anything else that you want to mention before I move on?
Nope.
Okay. Well, myself, I have pretty much been focused as well. I'm almost regretting having this section. I mean, we've had it's been a big release week, obviously. I spent pretty much all of my time with that. However, I would like to mention that Rob and I just really recently did spend a little time in Left 4 Dead 2 with a couple mods. One of which was the Velociraptor mod for Left 4 Dead 2, which I thought was all the enemies were going to be Velociraptors. Unfortunately, to my chagrin, I should more say, all of the main characters are Velociraptors. So your gun is held by a Velociraptor hand. When you look at your friends, all the other NPCs, they're all Velociraptors. It's absolutely ridiculous. And then Rob and I decided to put those Velociraptors into the first level of Hexen, which was a mod.
What the fuck?
I know.
It was ridiculous.
Is this a mod to create the world of Hexen, like the original game?
First level. It's a survival mode on the first level. It's a horde mode essentially on the first.
Actually, I'm not even sure it's the first level. I thought it was looking at the screenshots, but it's some place from Hexen. Yeah.
Wow.
And in 2D with all the pixels and everything.
It's definitely not a level. It's like a big open area with a couple rooms, but it was ridiculous because it wasn't just Left 4 Dead. It was Left 4 Dead as Velociraptors in Hexen. So if you want to kind of wrap that around your mind, we
should make a Turok mode for that.
Oh, Turok 1, that'd be fun. From N64.
Yeah, the real Turok, not this 360 shit.
That game had the best weapons of all time. Anyway, that was a different Turok game, but that was probably actually one of the best weapons ever in a shooter. We also, Rob and I, just for a hot minute, actually played Far Cry 3 competitive multiplayer. And we've been talking about Far Cry 3 a lot on the podcast here, but I don't think any of us until today, Rob and I finally sat down and played one or two rounds of Far Cry 3 competitive multiplayer. I mean, I'm not personally even a competitive multiplayer guy anymore in my older age, and this is very standard. So
Yeah, it's Call of Duty Far Cry Edition.
I got my
Nothing
ass.
really special about it.
I feel like I could probably.
Reflex kills on everything?
It's 2 hits. It's 2 hits and you're down. I mean, it's fine. It's not bad. It's not bad at all. I could totally see getting into it if I was younger, honestly. I'm just not personally into that style of gameplay anymore. That's just personal.
I like some multiplayer, but yeah, the Call of Duty style is not me at all.
I mean, even Halo and all that stuff. I used to be a really big Halo 3 competitive multiplayer player. I played hundreds of hours. I was ranked. I can't do it anymore. I don't know why. I like hanging out with my friends and playing video games now. So maybe it's an old age thing. Maybe it's just a change of taste. I don't know. But anyway, that's pretty much all I've been playing as well. So it's been a pretty light week for me. Well, besides the main topic, which we are going to get into right after the break, which we are going to go to right now. So please stick around after the break, because we are going to talk about the biggest game that has come out this year in the 3 months of this year. Quarter 1, the end of quarter 1, Bioshock Infinite. So stick around. We're going to talk about Bioshock Infinite. And if you have beaten it, please stick around even after that, because we're going to have a spoiler section. But all that comes after the break.
Game Out Loud. Game Out Loud.
All right, welcome back, everyone, to the Game Out Loud podcast. We are talking about today, of course, the biggest launch of the year thus far, and possibly the biggest launch of the year overall, although we know we are expecting some big things this year. But this is big. This is Bioshock Infinite. I think it's been in development for, I'm probably going to be corrected on this, I think 5 years. And that's kind of a big deal. We've all been waiting this for a long time. It was announced at E3 2011, right? Consensus?
2010, I
I
think.
think it was 2010.
I thought it was 2 years this coming E3. I mean, I might be wrong on that, but anyway, we've been waiting for this a long time. We first saw that initial launch trailer a number of years ago. We've all been waiting for it, and it's finally here. And now we're going to tell you what we think about it. Also, by the way, stick around after this, because we are going to be telling you the spoilers of it and telling you what we actually think of it bit by bit story-wise. But now we're going to give you our general thoughts. So this is a tough one. This is a tough one to tackle. This has been probably one of the highest rated games I've seen in a long time. The praise coming from this game from all angles has been absolutely off the charts. And before I tell my opinion about it, I think we're going to go round robin here. And I'd just like to give a quick kind of synopsis of what your thoughts are of it. We'll get more into the nitty gritty of all the story, the plot, the act structure, and all that. But let's start with you, Rob. What are your general short form thoughts of Bioshock Infinite?
Crap.
Moving on to Jordan.
Fecal matter.
What do you think?
No, I think it's really, really good. Having played System Shock 2 in the last 6 months, it didn't move back down towards that path at all, which anyone with half a brain wasn't expecting it to. But there's always just a little bit of hope out there that maybe we'll get another Shock game that's like the old ones. But no, this is pretty much a linear shooter, but it is a really, really excellent one with a great story. And the gunplay and gameplay in general, I think, is a big step up from the original Bioshock. So definitely thumbs up for me overall.
Is it a gunplay step up from System Shock?
Well, yeah. I mean,
okay.
Gunplay was never a strong point for that game.
Okay, so we've moved up in general along this series, right?
Well, I wouldn't say we've moved up taken as a whole, but the combat's a lot better. I mean, this is a fast-paced shooter. It's not really like a System Shock game at all. it's one of the more fast-paced shooters I've played in years, actually.
Right. Okay. Interesting. Jordan, what are your short-form thoughts?
I have a lot of love for this game. I appreciate a lot of the work they did, but one thing, and I just want to touch on it briefly, just stood out to me, and that's when I entered Colombia, is that I see a lot of the same faces. Which, I mean, this kind of goes away because the general populace, where the heavy populace disappears later on in the game because of all the chaos that happens. But I ended up seeing a lot of the same faces, which kind of drew me out a little bit. But, you know, I mean, we have to take into account, you know, I think Colin said to me once that, I mean, we have a huge budget on this game, but it's not infinite. So, unlike Bioshock
No pun intended.
You know, honestly, I didn't even think about that. But, I mean, that's just something that struck me right away. And I talked to Rob that I was kind of disappointed in that. And he's like, just wait. It gets better. And I'm like, okay. So I got farther along in the game, and man, this game has some sweeping arcs that I absolutely loved. The vigors feel a lot. Was yet another thing that I didn't feel I needed very much early on in the game, like until the halfway point, and then it just exploded with what I could do with those vigors and how versatile they actually make them. I love the new vigor style.
Yeah, no, I think that's. I think it's really done a lot for what I think were called. What were they called in Bioshock?
Plasmids.
Plasmids. That's
Plasmids,
right. Yeah. I think they did a nice thing with still feeling very much like a Bioshock game with all that, but yeah, definitely improved upon what was an excellent formula already.
Well, and how about
I
having
just-
Well, I was just going to say your hands changing way more in depth now, and it's fantastic.
Yeah. Now, the one thing that I did notice I was kind of disappointed with was the guns not changing. Like, you know, your hands change, but in Bioshock 1, whenever you upgraded a gun, I don't know if you guys remember that, like your physical, the look of the gun would change.
Indeed.
I never noticed that. But
Yeah, like if
Yeah.
you added more bullets, you would have a bigger rivet. Like in Bioshock 2, you'd have a bigger rivet lock on the side.
Yeah, or like you get eventually like electric shock rounds for your shotgun, so you'd see a little electrode on the side of your shotgun at that point, and it would and you'd see it like ching, like glow, and you'd see that change happen to your gun. And I was kind of slightly disappointed at that, but yeah, I think that they did a nice job with keeping it Bioshock, like Jordan was saying.
What were you saying there, Rob? Sorry, I heard you trying to bust in.
Oh, I was just going to say that one thing I forgot to mention is it does feel like a Bioshock game. You know, when the game was first announced and it was taking place in this different place, a lot of people were kind of going, why is this called Bioshock? And about half an hour in, you'll be like, oh, that's why it's called Bioshock. It's totally a Bioshock game.
Well, I'm not going to lie.
combat,
It took me a while to get that feeling. Like, I didn't feel like I was playing a Bioshock game for a while.
I feel like it should have felt like that though at first. Well, actually, I take that back immediately. I want to get in that in a second. Jordan, is there anything else you want to say about your initial thoughts?
I love the scope of the game. I love the level design, and overall, I'm a big fan of Bioshock Infinite, which I was kind of on the fence. I was excited for it, but I didn't know what to expect, so I definitely came out on the positive end of this stick.
Cool. And just my general thoughts are, yes, I think this is an incredible game. I've been waiting for this for a long time, and I was impressed even beyond what were very high set standards. I was looking forward to this game to be really great, and it exceeded everything I thought it was going to be, story-wise especially. But gameplay-wise, it was very Bioshock. Except it didn't feel so surprising as far as, excuse me, and I don't mean surprising as far as what I was expecting. I mean surprising as in the actual combat. In Bioshock 1 and 2, you feel like you're just kind of a target and things are going to come at you from any direction always, and it's all chaos. Obviously, it's still very frenetic chaos kind of style combat in this game, but you feel like you have some time to think about what's going on and where you are place-wise. In Bioshock 1, it was so claustrophobic, which I'm glad they got away from as well, that you felt like anywhere the combat was coming from, it was just so chaos and so crazy that I would just put my back in a corner every time I got into a room.
Right.
You know? So I'm glad that I didn't have to just put my back into a corner, and that there were at least some sense of tactical options and some actual arena style combat. So
I do want to bring up one thing that was a disappointment for me that still kind of remains one. That is the Skyrail system. I think that it is an interesting idea, but the only time I ever used the sky rails, other than when I had to, was just to take out the handymen. Like
Oh,
that.
really? Oh.
Yeah, I didn't find them as useful. I was when they talked about these sky rails, I was expecting these big sweeping things that would go from area to area, and you would be able to move around rather quickly instead of having these sort of interlacing in an area sky rails. So, like, I was imagining that you'd go all over Columbia instead of just having sky rails in a specific area that you're in.
So you thought it was going to be an open world aspect to it?
I thought it would have a little more of an open world aspect to it, you know. I mean, they definitely do have a large area that they've created, but it is definitely linear. I was maybe hoping for maybe a little bit more open as far as where I could go, when I could go, but I think the sky rails were shown, and I don't think they like falsely advertised them. I think just having talked to other people, they were expecting the same thing. And I think it's just a misunderstanding on our behalf of what they had planned.
I got exactly kind of what I expected on that, and a little bit more, because just as a Bioshock fan in general, Bioshock games are very linear, and they're kind of hub-ish based, where you go into an area and it's linear still, but it's almost in that Deus Ex sense where there's much more pared down. So if you haven't played the game, don't think it's like Deus Ex, but there's lots of exploring in that area, and in fact a lot of hidden exploring things that I thought were very interesting that were only accessible by Skyrail, and and I felt personally that the Skyrails opened up a lot of really cool tactical combat stuff, because you could slow down, and some of the equipment you got, the clothing that you had, actually controlled your ability to use the Skyrail, so you could slow down and use that to aim and hit the handyman in the heart to get that extra point, or to hit the Patriot in the gears, like as you're slowing down on the Skyrail. So it gave this kind of verticality and tactical options to what was very Bioshock combat still, but then it added that extra kind of almost arena-like Halo combat to it.
Yeah, they do a couple things in this game actually to make the combat be a little more tactical, even though it is so incredibly fast-paced. And that's a good example. Like, you're harder to hit when you're on a Skyrail, and it will also open up, like, carry you over to enemies that are more difficult for you to hit. So in the middle of a firefight, sometimes it behooves you to just jump on and take advantage of that, which I thought was really cool. The other thing I liked that they did was the tears that you can tell Elizabeth to open up. Those also add a little bit of a dynamic to it. So
those are used all the time.
There's so much combination to that, though. Like, what I felt was cool, that was almost Halo-ian, if I will. Is that, like, you're in these big arenas, right? And yes, it's very frenetic and it's very crazy, and people are coming at you from a lot of different directions. But as you'll jump on a Skyrail, and then you could, as you're in midair, you can open two tears. Boom, open a turret. Boom, open a air turret, which is essentially, they call them mosquitoes, but it's essentially a turret on balloons. And then open a tear for a cover. Jump behind that cover, open a med pack, get a med pack, and boom, you're healed again. You're ready to jump back into the middle combat. But in that time, you've created yourself a big barrier of resistance to give yourself time to kind of reformulate and re-strategize.
Well, you can only have one tear open at a time, right?
Yes.
Yeah, it's not like you have all those things and you leave them open. When you open one disappears.
Yeah, that's true. But things die so quickly. Like as soon as a turret becomes available, everyone focuses on that. So it's going to blow that turret up. So your tear becomes almost immediate again, right? So like you'll open up a tear for, say, the turret, and then everyone focuses their attention on that. Like the AI is just kind of more geared for that. It seems like everyone focuses, that draws everyone's attention away. Then you open up a tear for like your cover. You have cover as you land. Open up a new tear for your med packs. Get the med packs, and then you're ready to go back on the Skyrail again.
Yeah, and it works so effortlessly that I don't think most people who are playing it are thinking, wow, I'm being so tactical right now. I definitely wasn't, because it lets you adapt like fast on the fly. I didn't have the same feeling that I get when I'm playing Far Cry 1 or something, where I'm like, all right, here's my plan. I'm going to do this.
Right.
I'm going to run over here and cover there. You're just moving. And it's to their credit that everything works well enough that you can make that happen in some of these super hot combat situations that you get into.
It is, and it helps keep combat present. You know what I mean? Like you're not just like there and you can't because if you had to run away distance-wise, you've got to cover a fair amount of ground and you get killed. But instead, you can jump on a sky rail and make excellent amount of distance, get away from everyone, into the quiet again, reformulate, go to a vending machine.
Yeah, which are everywhere. Like they
everywhere,
they are all about vending machines in Colombia, just like they are in Rapture. I think they use the same guy to do the voice too.
They actually say something really similar. I think in Rapture it's welcome to the circus of value, and then in this one it was I appreciate ladies who understand value.
And they even make a reference to it's a circus of stuff. Like
did they say that? Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, I didn't hear that.
But one thing I wanted to bring up with you guys is, didn't you hate how you have Elizabeth and she's just stuck in corners and getting shot and dying, and you have to protect her all the time, and she's absolutely worthless?
What?
Yeah, right, because that didn't happen. Best accompaniment NPC I've ever seen in a game.
And that's saying a lot.
Indeed. I was so worried that I was going to be like, I need to keep her alive. Like, she is going to get stuck running into a wall while I need her to advance.
But I love that they say that right away, though. You meet Elizabeth immediately, and then there's an on-screen prompt that says, do not protect Elizabeth in combat. She can take care of herself.
Yeah, ducking behind corners, finding you stuff, money, weapons, everything. I mean, I really missed it when she wasn't around for one reason or another.
If we're moving on to Elizabeth, I think this is a good
I apologize.
No, I think it's a great opportunity to move on to Elizabeth. I think Elizabeth was fucking phenomenal. I can't say enough good things about the design on all aspects. I think I mentioned this to both of you guys earlier this week. I watched one of their dev documentaries about the 4 women who made Elizabeth. One was her face, one was her voice, one was her body and mocap, and one was the lead and designer. There's a woman who was she was a game designer and she helped design Elizabeth, and I'm sure there were many animators involved, but they were I'm sure that was partially some element of marketing there too, but these were the 4 women who helped make Elizabeth, and she was phenomenal, because what was she living up to? I don't even have to say it, right? I mean, right? Alex Vance, anyone?
Right. Well, the only good AI companion that's ever been. And the interesting thing about Elizabeth is, unlike Alex, where it's pretty easy to get how Alex works, like Alex does this small number of things and she does them very well. With Elizabeth, most of the things she does are not scripted. They're pulled from a range of possibilities that she can be doing at any time. And they're all pulled off so well that you don't even think about it, because you just think that everything she's doing is scripted. And to put that much time into something that a lot of people aren't even going to notice was very brave of Irrational, and kudos to them for pulling it off, because they really did a great job with her.
Well, I mean, it's go ahead.
I was just going to mention, she does these little things like looking out windows, going over. I was in an arcade and there was a dejected looking fat guy holding a sign and a stick of cotton candy. And I'm sitting there looking for stuff in the corners, looking for change underneath stuff. And she's like, oh, what's this? And I turn and she has gone over to that guy and she takes the cotton candy and she comes up to you. She's like, this stuff is amazing. It really, she gets excited about these little things that just make you feel like she's been locked in that tower for a while.
I know. And what's funny about that too is you mentioned the arcade, and I think Steam's chatted Rob about this. I was playing, and in one of the arcade games, she runs up to this arcade game for me, and she goes, "Oh my God, I've heard so much about this game. I heard it was delayed 3 times."
Yeah, what was that? Duke and
Doofus.
Doofus. Yeah, Duncan something. Yeah, I remember that one too, and I was like, really? Really? You're gonna go and investigate this mundane thing and give me this cool information?
But that's obviously they're talking about themselves,
Yeah.
which I think is a fun little thing. There's a couple moments. There's another moment late game too. I can't remember what it is now, but where they make a direct reference. Oh, it's when I can't say it.
This? Yeah,
I can't say it. I'm sorry, I can't say it. And we'll
talk
about it.
Podcast.
Stick around after the podcast for the spoiler section. We'll talk about it. But I almost let that one loose. But yeah, Elizabeth's animation system alone. I mean, you really do get the system or the sense that she has, like Jordan said, been locked in a tower because she looks at everything with amazement because she's never seen it before in real life. And
she's read about it.
But she's read about it, absolutely. But it's amazing to see her. And what's also amazing is to see her growth. Now, I don't think I spoil it with anything with this. Is that you'll see elements in the story, and this is a very, very well fleshed out story. That you see Elizabeth's growth over time, and the game plays with time and place a lot, and reality in some ways. And over time, you see the growth of what her mind is or can be, and it's interesting to see her grow not only as an AI, but as an NPC and as a character. You know, I think she's not only just a really engaging AI, but she's a really engaging character. You know.
Indeed, I mean, she doesn't just strike me as another face. Like her emotions play through really well. The way they did her eyes, I think, did a very good job too, because you can tell exactly how she's feeling, and the animations on her face in general are done really, really well. I only saw one instance where she had a face that I was like, I don't think that's quite what they meant to do, and I took a picture of it.
Well, and she isn't quite perfect. One kind of weird thing I noticed she'll do sometimes is her mood won't quite match between tasks. So you'll have this big heartfelt conversation with her where she's getting all emotional, and then as soon as it ends, there's a lockpick. And you're like, hey, can you pick that? She's like, yeah, sure, Mr. DeWitt.
Yeah, it's really like late game when the mood changes. Yeah, and she responds with, I found some money.
Yeah, but those moments are very few and far between, and I think overall she was very successful.
And I mean, the design of her was so ambitious, ridiculous, like probably stupidly ambitious, you know, like, and they couldn't quite meet it, but they got 95% the way there. And that 95% there was absolutely wonderfully executed, you know, and that 5% that's not there was not there because hell, how many fucking more delays could they have, you know, like,
yeah. Well, and this game very clearly changed a lot, not just from the 2010 E3 reveal, but from stuff that we were seeing 6-8 months ago is totally missing or completely different. They were definitely iterating on this game and trying to crack the nut of it right up until the end there. And
there was, I really specifically remember but it was like elements were there, you know, that they. So yeah, iterating is the best way to put it. So, you know, I remember I think the last big gameplay demo we saw had things like there's a power in the game where you can catch bullets. Essentially, I don't think that's a surprise to anyone if you watch anything. And as in the was it last E3 or one of the big gameplay demos that they did in the last year showed essentially Elizabeth doing that. So she would catch everything and then throw it back at them. You know. Or things like she created a cloud over everyone, then you electrocuted the rain they dropped, you know, and there were elements of all those things, but I think in the end they found those things very ambitious, which is what made this game so great, is that they shot for the moon and landed among the stars kind of thing, you know?
Right.
So in general, we've all kind of talked before we started this, and it is very hard to actually talk about Bioshock Infinite without ruining anything, because the story is just very specifically unique. So if you don't talk about the story, you can't really talk about it at all. So we're going to do a spoiler section after this. So do you guys have anything else to say that is just kind of the general thoughts on it? Rob, let's start with you.
I think it's a very excellent game. The one thing I didn't get to say that I wanted to is that I do wish that super fast-paced combat, as good as it is for what it is, had been slowed down a little bit. I missed the moments that I would get in something like a Dishonored or a Deus Ex where I could just creep around or play the game a little bit more quietly and have some time to think, whereas this is a very reactionary, fast-paced game by comparison. But for what it is, just super, super well done.
To address that real quick, if I may, do you think it's a flaw in games in general that they don't necessarily achieve like what would be a stealth choice game like Deus Ex or Dishonored, or do you think it's just like this game was specifically going for a more frenetic, old school style of combat? I mean, do you think that's a flaw, or do you think it's just a choice you're not super keen on?
Well, I think the reason I kept thinking that is because there are a lot of really big open levels here that would have catered to that play style perfectly. So just in my head, I kept wanting to play it that way. So whether that's a flaw or whether it's just a design decision, I'm not sure. I just know it's a recurring thought I had throughout the campaign.
Okay. Jordan, what are your general ending thoughts on the game before we move on to the spoiler section?
It doesn't seem to have all the twists that I was expecting from a Bioshock game. I mean, just like the multiple things that happen. I mean, it has one big one, so I enjoyed that. Overall, I think the combat is fun. You end up using all of the tools that you are given. Well, I eventually did. And overall, I think it's a great game. I think it's worth buying. And I'm afraid to admit this, but I think I'll be getting the season pass for it.
I will wait to see for season pass. Trust me, I'm very willing to give over for season pass. Have you heard anything about the season pass? Has anyone heard anything about the season pass?
I don't think they've announced anything yet, but I have my little brochure for it here, and it says new stories, new characters, new weapons. So we can expect quite a bit, it sounds like.
I think it was a feat, story-wise. I think this was something that you don't see a lot in games in general, especially in first-person shooters. It's like they kind of pushed the medium forward just a little bit. Not really. That sounds so cliche to say, but they did something that is important for games to do, first-person shooters especially, because of the violence, and a lot of people associate first-person shooters with just violence, and this is a very violent game, but they're saying a lot here. There are direct references to this game to a lot of plays, a lot of Nobel-winning plays, actually. Ken Levine, who's the creative director for Bioshock, he is absolutely a well-read man. There are direct references to Beckett, Pinter, Pirandello, and Tom Stoppard, namely Tom Stoppard's play Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead, especially in the scene. There's a scene very close to the beginning of the game where they're flipping a quarter around, and it's a probability scene where it's always heads. Only heads. That is a direct reference to the first scene of Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead by Tom Stoppard, which is probably actually, I would have to say, is one of the biggest influences on this game, because that story is all about two people being out of time and out of reality and looking down on Hamlet. So Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are two characters from Hamlet, but in Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead, they are dead, and they get to travel in and out of the events of Hamlet as their play moves along, and they get to come back out of time and out of place and talk about it in an existential way and probability and all the things that this game deals with. So it's a geniusly written play, an absolutely well-rounded piece of literature in a lot of ways. I know there's a lot of dialogue in this game, and that's my thoughts on it. So I guess we're going to end this thing kind of for now, because we're going to move on to another section. But thank you for joining us today on the Game Out Loud podcast. Because some of you may not be joining us for the latter section, we'll wrap this up suitably. Please contact us at gameoutloudpodcast@gmail.com. Of course, you can find us on Facebook. We are Game Out Loud Podcast. And of course, find us on bagofgames.com. There's excellent writing there and excellent game journalism, and you can always find us there. And please tweet at us, which is at GameOutLoudCast. We are very, very active Twitter, and we will respond to you directly, most likely. So I'd just like to thank both of you. Jordan, thank you for coming on today.
I'm happy to have been, will be, and will have been here.
Lovely, lovely. And Rob, thank you as well, sir.
Jordan stole mine.
Damn.
Did I really?
Maybe in a different universe.
Anyway.
Let's step through that door later.
We're about to step through that door in just a few minutes, so please stick around to hear the spoiler section if you have played. If you have not, I highly recommend you do not listen to the next section, because it's worth your journey through the game. So I'm Colin Cooper. Thanks for joining us on the Bag of Games Game Out Loud podcast. We'll see you next time. All right, everybody, welcome to the After Hours midnight discussion. Way late. Actually, it's not that late, but we want to make it all seem secret because this is the discussion of the spoilers of Bioshock Infinite. And, well, there's a lot to talk about. So we're going to start with the ending because that's probably the biggest point of contention. And I think we'll kick it off with Jordan. Because Jordan actually, I just like to say, finished it the most. I finished it today as well, but Jordan finished just a little more recently. So it's going to be the most fresh in your mind. So let's go over initial thoughts. There's so much analysis to that fucking ending that we could spend we could literally do a class on it, but let's just kind of give our initial thoughts and then we'll dive deep into it. Jordan, what are your initial thoughts when you finish the game?
2 words: mind fuck. It's like, oh my god, I did not see that twist coming. It took me a second to realize what was going on, and then my face got shoved underwater. So, yeah, dude, like the whole time paradox thing. I mean, when you're dealing with time, things just get really convoluted to begin with, and I had a feeling that time had something to do with it pretty early on, but I didn't think it was going to be like the crux that this game is based on.
So what you're saying essentially is you didn't think that you'd be killing Songbird in Rapture, right?
Yes, exactly. Like being transferred back to Rapture, I was literally, I sent Rob a Steam message that was, "What the fuck, Rapture?"
Did you guys see it coming that Andrew Ryan was pulling the strings the whole time?
I wish. I was hoping that there was something along those lines. Like,
should we just lie to everybody on this podcast? Should we just be like, should we just make up a whole to be like, I can't believe Andrew Ryan and Atlas teamed up to make
the
Columbia.
Super Happy Plasma Squad.
And then Sophia Lamb actually was the Lamb of Columbia.
Yes, she is actually Elizabeth, who was pushed into the past to save her. And anyway, yeah, we're lying through our teeth, but still, the fact, like, you're going after Comstock the entire time. And
Okay, let's talk about this. Right? So
did you take your own child? That's what's messing with me.
I think that happened in a different reality than the primary one of our Booker. And I got the impression
Elizabeth
that
has no finger in all of the realities.
She's your daughter, right? No matter what reality.
Yeah, I would think so. Because it doesn't seem to work like.
No, I don't think the Booker you start out as had a daughter. The impression I got is that as things went along, he began to gain those memories of his alternate selves.
Which is why he started bleeding.
But it started with started with the words of that lost daughter, which I assumed was a wife at first, Anna, and that was Elizabeth, right? And then I think here's how I took it. And then an alternate reality him later in life, who was Comstock, came back and took her, and then when he tried to get her back, that's that moment where she loses her finger.
Okay, another question, and there are going to be a lot of questions because I really need to replay this game to truly understand what's going on. Why is Comstock old and Booker DeWitt is
because
like 20
it's time.
years younger?
It is time. That's where we're having the time paradox because you're moving back and forth in time. We saw that in the game itself. So the reason it took all of Elizabeth's power to bring you to Columbia. Meaning that I took that as she pulled you from time.
Or not just Elizabeth. Okay. Elizabeth wasn't the only one in this conspiracy. It was the 2 physicists, who were playing a big role in this. And I think that's
Rosencrantz and Guildenstern.
That's who they are. That's exactly who they are. They are playing this role of these divine meddlers. Who are coming into this world and meddling with this reality because they were scientists in life and now in death or whatever you want to describe their existence as, this ethereal entities, they are messing with mortals now. And that's what I got from it. And now they're kind of intervening godlike into what is Booker, the loss of Booker's daughter and the regaining of his daughter, because they are the repayers. They're bring the girl. What is it?
Bring the girl and wipe away the debt.
Wipe away the debt. Like, but the debt isn't a gambling. Like we thought, the debt is sin from their point of view. The sin that he caused throughout, like, you know, Wounded Knee and all these things, and he feels it too because he, like, somewhere in the recesses of his mind knows that he's also Comstock in a different reality. So Booker and Comstock are parallel entities. They're the same person along separate but parallel dimensional tracks. They're the same person. And then so he steals his own daughter from himself, you know, but that's still his daughter. So it's this crazy conundrum.
Now,
you know?
what makes Booker DeWitt immune to the zombie effect that seems to happen when you kill someone in one reality? Their nose starts bleeding, which we had Booker have happen. But in the game, you see that when you have killed people in an area and then you go through a tear, they are now zombified and kind of stuck in between worlds.
Well, because you're seeing them, like, Booker probably is zombified in millions of worlds. This is the world you are playing through the world where he's living his story, though. All the people you see are zombified probably live out their lives, you know, in X millions. This is M theory. This whole fucking thing is M theory. So, like, parallel dimensions. Like, it's like a loaf of bread, kind of like, if you want to put it into a tangible reality, and the universes are stacked up on top of each other. And the only thing
like so much bacon and lettuce,
like so much delicious bacon and lettuce, and only thing that can move through them are particles. But also, like, all those zombies that you saw in another billion, jagillion, trillion, like, made up Googleplex worlds, they are, you know, living out different lives and doing different things. And you're playing because this is a game, and you need to have that, you know, drive. And it would be boring if you were a zombie. You're playing through the world where Booker did this, you know, and this is the way Booker went. But I think they're trying to say that this version of Booker is kind of the Booker that met Elizabeth and fucked the time continuum, you know, like it broke it. Like, that's what I got from it.
He gave Doc Brown a fucking aneurysm.
It's seriously, like, don't you get that sense at the end? You're like, it's kind of like that other game that's really bad that I really love a lot, that I always mention.
Singularity?
Yeah, where you break time, and it's like there's no going back. We broke time. And I feel like I got that in this, but you still have the authority to keep moving through that, you know?
Man, I didn't think about that. There's actually a lot of similarities between this and Singularity.
Yeah.
The kind of the tears and stuff like that, and Singularity, different times interact with each other, but in this it's different universes.
There is much more like,
interesting.
Like, here's what happened. You know, it's much more direct.
Yeah. So are you saying that Elizabeth is constantly working at 1.21 gigawatts? By the way, I just wanted to ask because, like, that lady has some power.
Look, let's not get too technical.
One thing I wanted to bring up was the whole time thing. You were asking how this happens. One other thing we can reference for time is when she has been taken away by the songbird and you are trying to rescue her. And you're seeing through these tears, but they're not tears in dimension. They're tears in time. It almost seems like, almost like you seem to be moving a lot slower than she is, because like 6 months happens in the amount of like an hour for you.
No, but it's not. It happens. It just happens to be that tear you're seeing is a tear into one of what they say later in the game is infinite possibility of dimensions. So you're just seeing one. It's almost confusing and I think a little misleading, because they're showing you one possibility in those tears of what are literally infinite possibilities, where Elizabeth turns and Elizabeth becomes Comstock. Like, that's where this world you've entered at one point, but that's just one of infinite possibilities, you know. And when Booker is so brilliantly, by the way, drowned by Elizabeth's in another baptism, like, so bringing full circle. Talk about, like, the song. Did you guys see the song, like the moment where you play the guitar and Elizabeth sings?
Yes, that was absolutely fantastic.
I missed it, but I heard about it.
Dude, it's like this secret door you go down into, and Booker grabs a guitar and he plays, and Elizabeth sings the song from the marketing piece about a year ago, May the Circle Be Unbroken, and that's such a perfect theme for this, like May the Circle Be Unbroken, and there is no circle. There's no circle to break. There are just so many circles, and that's the end. Like you enter Columbia in a baptism and you die. Booker dies in a baptism at the end. That's fucking brilliant. But it's only one possibility. Booker's alive in a billion other places, by the way. So.
But, didn't they? Well, see, that's why I also wonder if they're still, again, messing in time. Because they went back, and what they were saying was, I need to kill Comstock before he was born. I need to smother him as a child. And if you think about it, when he goes back and they do that drowning, that is the birth of Comstock when he is reborn and baptized as Zechariah Comstock.
Oh, that's it.
That's brilliant.
That's it.
Yep,
so
that
totally moment
dead on.
That when in real life in Booker's line, when he after Wounded Knee for his sins he became a born again Christian, right? And so to atone for those sins that he had done during Wounded Knee, and now when he goes back, the birth of Comstock, which is actually Booker as well, like that is when they kill him. You're right. That's fucking totally genius. Oh my god.
Yeah, they definitely go back and they kill Comstock at his conception, and that was right then. And it took me a second to realize, I'm like, we're back here. Why are we back here? And then I'm like, oh no, I'm Comstock. And then they're like, oh no, you're Comstock. I'm like, no, I was supposed to be wrong.
So then that's why he put the false shepherd on his hand. So wait, okay. So he put the mark on his hand because he knew, I know you, Booker, he said, because he is Booker. But he knew that another Booker would be coming for him.
Yes, he saw that in the scientist machine. They state that in one of the reels that we told him that it only shows probability of what may happen, but he takes it as prophecy, and he has seen the false prophet who is himself. And it's just
so how does another version of himself come for him though? Like how does the other Booker DeWitt's story unfold that he comes to Columbia to come for Comstock and the Lamb?
I think he just saw that this was something that could happen, and he pushed it into reality by trying to stop it. That's what I took from it. This was a probability. This is something that possibly could happen. But because he took the actions he did, that led to the downfall of things and to that those two scientists meddling because he messed with them. Remember, he destroyed their machine. He sabotaged it and thus caused them... And they're like, strange, we're not dead. Weird, we don't get it. So now they want revenge, and they want to fix what they feel maybe has gone wrong, so they then start pulling Booker into the story.
Wait, so Comstock himself must have the sign of the false shepherd on his hand as well.
not in this line, because I don't think he had Elizabeth, because
so
Elizabeth
how would he know about
somewhere else? Because he saw it in the machine. He is the prophet because of those scientists.
Right. So he mixed two full worlds together, because he couldn't have brought just Booker in.
No, he didn't bring Booker in. The scientists did, but because that was probably the last thing that they saw. That was the last thing I saw with him, and then he sabotaged it, killing them.
Why would they want to bring Booker in?
To stop him. He killed them, respectively.
Right.
Like, they're still alive, but Comstock killed them. They want him gone. That is what I pulled. That's why they're meddling. Like, I think they pulled Booker in from the reality where he sold his daughter. And...
Well, no, I think there's some kind of experimentation going on, though.
Yeah.
I don't think they're using him as a means to an end, because when you meet them, they're like marking down what you're doing, heads or tails, and then they have a chart with all the other times they've asked you.
Is that just him, though?
You usually get heads. Well, that's the impression I got, is that they were jumping around from dimension to dimension, measuring differences.
Oh my God. That's
I didn't get that
revelation.
Either. Thank you, Rob. Yeah, I thought they were talking about everybody that passed through that door, not every you that passed through that door. It's the same every time.
It's every you.
That makes so much more sense.
Every you. So they are jumping around to see the conclusion of every Booker invasion. And sometimes Booker fails, or maybe he doesn't fail, but he always, or maybe he always wins.
There are points where Booker starts bleeding from the nose, which we know that's when one of the alternates die.
But we don't know that's when the alternates die.
Anytime you see someone with a bleeding nose, it's because one of their dimensions have perished. Generally to their zombified dismay.
So here's a little less plot-related question. Since they built up the theme of American exceptionalism so much leading up to this game, did you guys feel a little weirded out or think it was a little bit of a bait and switch when it was much more about, to me anyway, Comstock was a mix between Joseph Smith and Brigham Young, and
what?
Columbia was kind of his Zion, his Utah.
Oh, that never occurred to me.
It didn't?
That he created this utopia for himself?
No,
well, I got
just
that.
that it was much more themed about like American religion than it was about American exceptionalism. That stuff was there.
I just took it as like it was a mix of the ideals of American patriotism to their extent, and then the ideals of American fanaticism of where we are in religion, and then they mix those two to bring the ideals of America and the founders as that fanaticism for what the religion is.
See, I just saw that they were showing the religion and then showed it was a sham, so I thought it was a great allegory. Anyway.
Well, I think I agree with that, but I'm just saying that
I just thought they played up the religious aspect of it a lot more than the political aspect, which was interesting because that's not how it was marketed.
And then the race aspect, I've never seen that done in a game. It was a shocking moment to me when you're at the fair, the raffle, and you win, and the prize is an Irishman and a black girl to throw a baseball at.
Like, you get to throw the first baseball, not even just...
No, you get to throw the first one. And I chose to throw it at the guy.
Don't take number 17.
77.
77. Oh, yeah.
But yeah, no, incredible. That was definitely a side note, but this game has... But the game none of those aspects of the game were too big for their britches. All of them were so perfectly executed into a world, that made it feel like these were righteous 1912 racists who religious crazies essentially who never once was Jesus mentioned.
Yes, he was.
Only Jesus Christ?
Yes.
I never heard Jesus mentioned.
Really?
Yep, he was. And near Endgame, they're talking about he's in the baptism.
Oh, yes, you're right. He is in the
Sorry, I am fine cutting fine hairs, but he was mentioned.
Okay, he was in the baptism. But what I'm saying is what the replacement for what Jesus was, instead of Jesus, it was George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, and
Benjamin Franklin.
Benjamin Franklin, and they were it was like that perfect blend of bad patriotism and bad religion mixed to be this ultimate distortion of what could be a good thing.
Well, now talking about the political aspect to it, Rob, one of the things that was heavily influenced in Bioshock was the utopia being destroyed from within by industrialism and by personal gain.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly, and that's something that we're seeing here. With the whole Think area is all a reference to the Bioshock utopia and what they have here, and how this is the same thing that happened in Rapture. Is that the lower class and the underclass rose up against the founders and caused the utopia to fall because of the underprivileged world that they were forced into, not having any station to move above. But that's something cool. Having read Rapture, the story that's about the beginning of Rapture and then the fall, being able to see that put in a game form and shown to me and let me see this living utopia that is just starting to hit those edges, those cracks. And my actions, I do kind of feel like, I'm helping the Vox Pupil, not out of choice.
Populi.
Sorry, Vox Populi, yes. But I still have a hand in it, and I get to see this this world start to fall apart, which is the one thing that you miss in Bioshock and Bioshock 2, because you're there like 10 years after or a year after the fall, and then 10 years
Right.
after the fall.
We can't really count Bioshock 2 into this mix much, though. I mean, to be fair to Ken Levine.
True.
Well, and with System Shock too. In fact, the reason the System Shock in the first few Bioshock games didn't show anyone is because the guys at Looking Glass International knew that it's a huge problem to have a living world with NPCs that you can interact with in a believable way. And that's one of the main problems they were trying to tackle with Infinite, to, I would say, mixed success.
Yeah, I think they got some of it right, some of it they didn't, but it does make me excited for what they have coming out like in the future.
It feels like a step in the right direction.
I feel like what they did was right, because when you look at the whole picture, like let's take the first moment when you enter Columbia proper. You know, you're not in doing the baptism, you're not in the little candlelit religious area. That is one of the most breathtaking moments I've personally ever had in a video game, with the moving buildings, and my field of view was all the way out, and I was almost motion sick at what I was seeing. And then I walked through, and people were talking or looking away and looking at me, and, you know, there are moments of dead eyes, you know, but there are moments of Half-Life 2-ish, Half-Life 2-ian moments where they look you in the eye. And I don't know why it's hit or miss with those NPCs, but you get this sense of place and time with that. And it's not just that it's the NPCs, it's the most striking art direction I have ever seen, and I do feel fair to say this, the most striking art direction I have ever seen in a game. In that first 40 minutes.
I do feel that I need to amend my statement earlier, or not amend, but compliment it with this, and that was, I said that I was kind of disappointed by the people in the world, just the static people, but as much disappointment, or even more, it's not measurable, but like that disappointment was completely washed away and just put into utter awe at the grandioseness of the design of this world, the scale of which they have created Columbia. I mean, you don't visit, I mean, probably even 100th of the area of Columbia. It is a massive, massive world that you see off in the distance. You'll never, ever reach that. But then there are times where you see something off in the distance and you actually do go to it, like when you're going to the home of Comstock. That scene where you are looking at the gigantic faces of Jefferson, Benjamin, and Washington, or Franklin and Washington, and you are walking past them, that is just, it's amazing. It is awe-inspiring.
Or not,
seeing
that
world burn.
Or even the little subtle details, you know, like of all the music you hear. You know, one of the first things you see in the game is a quartet playing a Beach Boys song, you know, and that's kind of surreal. And then you're in a bar later, and it's playing a Kinks song, but it's a jazz rendition of it. But then you realize later that that's because this musician from Columbia was influenced by these tears where time was distorted, and that in that distortion of time, he was hearing Kinks play. He was hearing the Beach Boys play.
He was hearing, like,
he ripped that music off.
Yeah,
he was ripping that music off and bringing it into the style of 1912, and like the way that played into the plot and the story, I was just like, that is ridiculous. That's just like A, expensive, B, like just insanely ridiculously the attention to detail of what that means, like, because that is not something that's an exploratory item to go into that musician's house, you know. That's fucking genius.
See, I actually didn't even go into that musician's house. I found that out by going into Fink Industries and listening to Fink congratulate that guy by listening to these tears in space and getting the sound, and it's great for his industry as well.
Oh, I remember something like that. But if you go into his house, it's near the graveyard where you fight Elizabeth's mom. There's a musician's house, and he leaves a voxophone, and he says, you know, he talks about the tears, like hearing these music through the tears and how he replicates it through these tears. And it's just, I was blown away by that detail, because, you know, I thought that was really cool, and I got to the point. I got it. As in, like, obviously something's happening. There's a time-space thing happening with this. But I didn't realize it was directly influenced, that someone was just ripping off, like someone was being a hack, essentially, through these tears. I was like, that's amazing. you know?
And it definitely, like, the one thing I will say, the world of Columbia definitely feels like a world of its own. The setting is very well done. Like, and just because we can have that thought, this guy was ripping off the future. I mean, in a game that didn't have near the setting this game did, it wouldn't have that much weight, but it does because the world. Go ahead, Rob.
I was just gonna say, and it feels so much more like an actual place than Rapture did. To me, Rapture always just felt like a few corridors.
Well, see, I always loved Rapture.
But that's, and now I'm going to say what I couldn't say earlier. When they get to Rapture, I love how Booker is like, a city at the bottom of the ocean. That's ridiculous. Like,
I know, right? They're not afraid to poke fun at themselves.
And it's like, I get it. And what's funny is that they actually do explain Columbia, and it kind of makes more sense in a way. This floating city. And then when Booker gets down, he's been in note that Booker has just come to the realization that time and space can be torn asunder by Elizabeth, and that he's been fighting, like everyone, like from hell and beyond in the sky at 15,000 feet, and he gets to Rapture, and he's like, "Well, this is ridiculous." Like, talk about someone who, like, how do you surprise Booker DeWitt? Okay, Rapture, I guess, you know.
Well, and it's a good thing my jaw was open at that point in unbelief, because that could have been quite a mood-breaking moment, but I was actually okay with it.
Me too.
Same here. Like, I was still in awe. All I see, I'm looking out the window, and I'm like, wait a minute. This has the color scheme of Rapture. What's going on here?
It was borderline mood-breaking, though. It really was. Like, I was literally jaw-dropped. Rob actually had Steam chatted me, like, moments before and was like, "Colin, I wish I could turn on your webcam and see what your face is going to look like in a minute." And I was like, "Oh, okay, I could turn it on." He's like, no, I'm just kidding. But then, like, when it happened, I was literally, like, thinking, because I looked ridiculous. My hands were going all over the place, and I was like, my jaw was dropping. I was like, what the fuck? Like, yelling out at my monitor. And then Booker says that, and I laugh. But, like, if it hadn't been so impactful, I would have been like, I would have laughed at that. You know, if it had been a worse game, it would have been a terrible throwaway, moment ruining line.
Now, I need some clarification here, because we go from Rapture, we're running around in Rapture, and then we're going into lighthouses. Is she saying that, like, Rapture is the central dimension then?
No.
That's just where she took them?
She's saying every dimension starts with the lighthouse, which the number, I think it's more of a metaphor when she points to the stars. Mm-hmm. They number similarly. And Rapture is just one of those alternate dimensions. And I think they were trying to mess a little bit with the fourth wall, whereas, like, our reality is one of those.
Yeah,
and inside other ones are video games. It's almost like Reverend Cooper in the land of the video games.
That's what I felt too, dude. I felt they were trying to make that reference, or maybe they were talking about, like, games.
How nice of them to reference our monthly serial that we stopped.
And maybe we'll start doing if we ever get motivated once again.
If Ken Levine sends us a message and says, "Hey, I want you to start those up again," we will do them.
If anyone would like them, I think Ken Levine might like them, actually. But yeah, no, it's totally true. I think it is a little meta. I think it is a little bit fourth wall breaking, but it doesn't do it at all heavy handed. It's absolutely, it's just trying to. It's just a really great message that you don't, not message, that's the wrong word. It's a really great theme that you don't see in a lot of video games, and it's done better than I've ever seen it done. You know, like this is what makes this medium so great, because there's no way a film can pull off this shit. You know, it just looks stupid when you can't play it, but when you can play it and you walk across. And you have you actually control walking across a boardwalk to another lighthouse that you know is just another choice. But then you look across and you see yourself doing that same thing. You see Booker and Elizabeth over on the other boardwalk. It's like, that was really impactful for me. That whole moment, it was really impactful for me. That whole moment building into, like, you know, Elizabeth's finger and your origin as Comstock, your origin as Elizabeth's father, all that stuff. I was just blown away by the delivery of it.
And it speaks a lot to the direction of the game, which is a weird thing to think about in a game, but
that's what they say. Like, I mean, you know, it almost sounds funny to call him an auteur, Ken Levine. You know, I've heard the word thrown around. But he is in a way what you would consider an auteur, because that's the reason people were fired. That's the reason people left. That's the reason people or why the game was delayed, is because people didn't believe in it. People fought Elizabeth the entire time. This is too hard. This is too big. We can't do this. And I can only imagine Ken Levine being like, no, we are doing this. This is what we're doing. Like, okay, well, it's going to be delayed. Fuck it if it's delayed. This is the game we're making,
He sounded way nerdier when he said it, though.
Right. Well, he's like the biggest nerd on earth. But yeah, exactly. But like that's look, he's the only one I could think of to throw around the word auteur at in the games industry. I mean, auteur isn't necessarily a good or bad thing. Like in a lot of cases, it can be a bad thing, but in this case, I think he is an auteur. He does have a vision, and he's making people realize it.
Sure. Well, I think there's other ones too. The Metal Gear Solid guy.
Okay.
His name escapes me at the moment.
Hideo Kojima.
Dark Souls guy.
Yeah, they're out there, but yeah, they are few and far between.
And it's not a good thing always, though. Auteur doesn't mean good. Auteur means control.
Well, Valve's a collective. It's dead opposite, and their work's just as good.
Exactly.
But,
exactly. And auteur can be really bad. Like you can call. I'm sure there are like maybe Uwe Boll's an auteur. He's just a fucking terrible one.
He paints in feces.
He paints in feces, but god damn it, it's his feces. Anyway, guys, I think that we have nailed this to the wall here. This is a pretty complicated subject. I think this is one of the more fantastic games I've played in a long time. I'm absolutely impressed by the story, the character development, what it makes me think about, in the greater sense of existence. It was a great ride. Let's just go one more time round robin. If anything you want to say, I'm not even saying closing thoughts. This is just whatever you want to say. Just if you didn't get something across, something you didn't get to say it. Rob, you start.
There once was a man from Nantucket.
All right, Rob's done. Rob, anything you want to say?
No, I think this is a really excellent game. I came into it as a skeptic because I wasn't a huge Bioshock fan. I liked Bioshock, okay, but I was really impressed with it. It's probably my favorite game of the year so far. So definitely gets a recommendation from me. If I ever figure out the plot, I will be amazed with myself.
Nice. Yeah, right. Jordan, anything you want to add to this conversation?
I am a big Bioshock fan. I loved 1. I am playing through 2, and I've played 1 multiple times. I've read the fan fiction. I've read published fiction on Bioshock. I am a huge Bioshock fan, and I was kind of questioning this game as well due to the change of everything other than the fact that you have plasmids that are called Vigors and salts that used to be Eve. I was kind of, holding back my reserve, not expecting to get too much out of it, but I was completely blown away. It fully gets an endorsement from me. I love it absolutely, and I'm going to start my next playthrough here after we get off of the podcast call.
And for me, I'm really in the same ballpark here. I thought it was a fantastic game, and I have to say, if anyone is a longtime listener at all, you would know that I am a big time fan of Half-Life 2. This game really, really did its Half-Life 2 homework. Alex Vance was probably the only character, NPC-wise, that I've had I felt like emotions for, you feel like they're a person in your life, and I think Elizabeth did that as well. Maybe for nostalgia's sake, Alex still has that place above Elizabeth, but Elizabeth definitely has taken the next step of being a character that you can relate to and feel real empathy for in a video game. And because of that, this puts video games a few inches forward as far as what a story can do with character and story in the video game medium. So for me, when anything like that happens, be it Walking Dead last year or be it Elizabeth this year, I'm really happy to see that this medium can move forward as far as storytelling. So I'd like to thank everybody again for coming on the show today. We are the Game Out Loud podcast. Please We already gave you the contact info, but please do get a hold of us. We will respond to you, and we'll see you next time, guys.